Hey, what's going on YouTube? This is a new multimeter review. So the main reason I got this is just because, well, I've never owned anything by Voltcraft, and it's foreign and it seemed exotic and cool, so I decided to pick one up. And it's actually a reputable German company. I've never heard anything bad about them, so it's not like some random Chinese company that's copying a Chinese model that's copying another Chinese model. This is actually a name brand. Though I will say there's one caveat. This might look familiar. Picture the white rubber surround, which is actually an integrated one, but picture that being red. Does that remind you of anything? It should. It's Unity makes this for Voltcraft. And I saw people say that, and I didn't know if I should believe it or not, but it definitely is. If you look at the specs, 60,000 counts, you look at the cat ratings, you look at the different features, how it comes with the optical USB cable for data logging. I mean, everything about this is identical to, see, I don't remember which model. Is it the 61, UT61 series? I'm not, UT61E? I don't know if that's the one, or if it's a 70 series or 80 series. I don't honestly know which model this is based off of. I'm just hoping that when we pop this thing open and look under the hood, that we find out that Voltcraft actually changed a lot of things, because as most of you probably know, if you've seen any reviews or takedowns of the Unity stuff, their input protection is pretty lacking, and there's people who have managed to kill theirs pretty easily, as where you can take a Fluke 87.5, do whatever you want to it, and you'll have a pretty hard time getting one of those to die. So Unity, not the greatest track record for quality with them externally, and like the build quality seems okay. It's the circuit design, the component spacing, the lack of input protection. It's that kind of stuff that seems really lacking, and they have kind of a bad track record with that kind of stuff. That being said, this is Voltcraft, so for all we know, you know, they custom ordered the PCB to their own specs, and it could be completely different. Maybe it's just their that chipset that they use in all their Unity meters. Maybe that's really the only thing they're borrowing from it, and as well as similarities in the case. Don't know. So let's find out. I believe this meter is, it depends on what country you live in, if you have to pay shipping, VAT, export taxes, import taxes, yada yada, but I think shipped I paid around $250 US, and I had to get it from one of the bigger vendors that most people in Europe would be able to order it from. They said they don't ship to the US or Canada because of when they handle returns, it ends up being way too expensive. So they ship anywhere else though. Unfortunately, I couldn't order it from there. The only place I could find it that would ship to the US was in Slovakia, so that's where I got this from. And shipping honestly didn't take that long despite coming from Slovakia. I think it was maybe 8 or 9 days, so pretty awesome. Okay, so as far as packaging, I would say this is a pretty ordinary cardboard box. I mean, it's got color printing and it's glossy, but it's just a box. So inside, for a $250 meter, I'd say it's a little poor. I mean, it's thrown into a box. There's no cardboard dividers to help protect the different things. I mean, and this is a really thin bubble wrap, and half the bubbles are popped. So, you know, the screen could get scratched, and not the greatest impression, but let's see what all it comes with. Okay, so let's take a look at what it comes with. It comes with the meter itself, wrapped in bubble wrap, but like I said, it's not even taped shut, it's just in there. That could have come off, something could have got in there and scratched the screen. Packaging's a little disappointing considering that this is a premium meter at a decent price. Looks like this is the data logging software. It says Voltcraft. Comes with some insulated alligator leads. I definitely don't mind that at all. Those are very handy. Guessing it plugs into the end of your... No, actually these plug straight into the meter. So these are like the really short LCR style alligator leads. Here are the probes. Comes with the IR data logger, just like the Unities do. Now this looks different actually. Actually, I prefer the Unity one, because this, if this dies or it doesn't work, this is proprietary. You'd have to buy a new one. The Unity ones, if I remember correctly, it's basically this plugs into your meter, and then it has the typical blade slots that the standard K-type thermocouples usually have, so you could buy whatever thermocouple you wanted. Or this, you're stuck using this. So that's kind of a thumbs down right there. Last but not least, the meter. It's actually pretty big, and it's in multiple languages. Looks like English is second, but I mean, it's a German brand, so German first. I have no problems with that. Germans are usually really good English speakers, so yeah, it's in really good English. I have no problems with that at all. It seems like pretty decent. Oh, it's got little diagrams, and that's actually really detailed for a foreign brand. That's excellent. Okay, so let's take a look at the physical construction. Honestly, this thing feels tough. It's super rigid, and you know, if it's based off of UNITs, they're known for being pretty decently built meters. Other than, you know, some of the actual PCB related problems, they're good meters, and they usually have really good screens. But in this case, it's actually one of the reasons why I bought this. It doesn't have the standard UNIT screen. This actually has something that I've never seen on UNIT, and it's an OLED screen. And I actually already have an OLED meter. And I know there's downsides and people hate on this, and trust me, I have my complaints about it, mainly the battery life. But the display is so sharp. Now this has a much higher resolution, not by a whole lot, but it's definitely got a higher resolution than the one on the Voltcraft. That being said, though, it's the sharpness, not the sharpness, it's the contrast that I'm really looking for. Because when you have a multimeter in a video, a YouTube video, and you're trying to fit everything into the frame, into the shot, with the standard one, like a Fluke, a standard LCD screen, you really got to worry about what angle you place your screens and your meters. And sometimes it gets really hard to fit everything in the shot, especially when you have to like angle it. And with one of these, I mean, look at this. I can just lay it down here, and you can read that perfectly fine from a ridiculous angle. What's that, like 70 degrees or something? I mean, what meter would you be able to read the screen perfectly clear like that at this angle? Very, very few. It doesn't matter where it is, what the lighting is like. That's why I really, really, really like OLED, and hopefully this has a better battery life. If it does, I'll use this primarily in my YouTube videos, because I love my Fluke 87, don't get me wrong, but having OLED makes it so nice for the purpose of YouTube videos. If I'm doing a project, I want to show you voltages or something, it's really awesome for that. So anyways, we should go back into physical construction here. So the chassis, excellent. I have no problems. I wish the surround were, you know, Fluke style. This is actually built in just like on the UNITs, but I've never really heard of anyone complaining about the build quality of the UNIT. They seem to be pretty decent. It feels good. It feels like to me, in the hand, it feels like what I would consider a premium multimeter. Not quite to the level of the Fluke or the Agilent. They have a softer rubber, and that makes it, I don't know why, but it makes it feel a little better. This feels, you know, you get the really cheap meters, and they have just the really crap quality plastic, and that's all you feel. And you get a little bit of that. It's a little rubberized, but it's a pretty hard rubber. Versus, you know, the surround on like the Flukes, it's more pliable. So not a bad thing, but it still feels like a premium meter. Size, it's a little, probably a hair more narrow than a Fluke 87.5, and just a hair shorter, and it's not too thick. It's I'd say an average full-size multimeter. Let's see, durability, like I said, no rubber surround, so this probably wouldn't be as durable as a Fluke 87.5 or any other standard multimeter that has a rubber surround that's detachable. The screen, I think the screen has pretty good protection on it. And that's kind of a downside to this is the holster. Well, it's not really the holster, but the things that protect the unit don't stick out very far. Down here you just have two nubs, and it's actually on the plastic part, so it wouldn't really give you much grip. Granted, if you're on an ESD mat, I mean, it's not moving anywhere. These two are the rubber. Yeah, and just like in most meters, the range switch sticks out, so if you dropped it face first, that would be what hits first. But all meters are like that, so I can't knock it for that. Okay, so let's discuss range switch. So I would say this is probably, I would say this is a hair better than the Fluke, to be honest. It feels super clicky. It takes a little more force than the Fluke and has a sharper, more crisp snap into each range. Definitely would never have a problem warning about this going between two ranges. I mean, it's very, very crisp. So this is probably about as good of a range switch as you could get without going with the fancy ball bearing style. So I would say that is very, 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 very excellent as far as range switches go. Oh, and I don't care about this because I never have my meters laying flat, hardly ever, and if I do, I don't have a problem using two hands to adjust it or pushing down. But just for the sake of making my comparison closer to Dave Jones, so if people want to compare meters more evenly, we'll go ahead and do it. Obviously, and that's kind of the reason why I don't think it's a big deal. A lot of people will be working on it, yes, Matt, but for people who aren't, let's try it over here on the wood. A little bit. If you push down, it doesn't seem to spin. It was spinning just a tiny bit, but not enough for you to care. Okay, let's look at the kickstand. So it's identical to the one on the Uni-T as far as I can tell. But I don't mind it, to be honest. I wish it sat up a little higher because the farther back you lean, the more real estate you're eating on your workbench. But that being said, it's not that bad. And it doesn't feel like it's going to break. It feels fine. And then it snaps nicely and you can get it out easily. I don't understand when people complain about not being able to get these out. I mean, super easy. So I'd say that gets a thumbs up. Oh, and this is a weird thing about this model. The only other meter I've ever seen that has a tripod mount is the Radio Shack one. The True RMS Radio Shack meter that I reviewed a while back. I thought it was bizarre, and on that model it was bizarre to me. And this makes a little more sense now that I think about it, because this comes with, you know, the data logging ability. So does the Radio Shack one, but I didn't even consider ever using it. If you're data logging, it'd be nice to be able to throw this up on the tripod, you know, get it off the ground, you know, have like a tablet or laptop nearby that you can log to. So it makes sense. But it's cool, and it didn't cost them much money to incorporate it, so big deal. Oh, and let's test the stability. Yeah, I mean, very sturdy, super wide at the base. It's not very tall, and because it doesn't stand as tall, I think it's got lower center of gravity, so it's even more stable. So that's probably about as good as a kickstand can get as far as stability. Okay, so let's talk about the display. It's OLED, contrast is excellent, sharpness isn't the greatest just because the resolution's low. And obviously you can't beat the sharpness of a regular LCD because, you know, like the type the Fluke has, those are like 7-segment style to where you have an entire segment that lights up, so there aren't actual pixels that make it up, so it's basically as sharp as you could possibly get it, and you just can't beat that. But that being said, look how beautiful that is. It's OLED, so I really like it a lot. It's got a pretty good glass protection, like on the front, and it's not flexible at all. It's very, very rigid, so I don't have any problems whatsoever with that. And we already covered viewing angle because it's OLED. It just doesn't wash out like the LCDs do, so excellent, excellent viewing angle. And this is normal. If you ask if there's a backlight, technically no, but OLED screens don't need backlights because that's the whole point of an OLED. The pixels actually illuminate themselves, and that's why they have such awesome contrast. If basically it's showing black on the screen, it's not doing anything to make it black. It's actually turned off. So picture this as a whole array of LEDs, basically organic LEDs, and then you can just turn each one on or off individually. Just picture them being RGB ones, actually, and that's kind of how the colored ones would be. This is obviously a monochrome one. It makes them a lot cheaper, but excellent. All right, it's time to see how easy it is to get to the battery and or fuse. So I already unscrewed this to save time on the video length, and it won't come out any further, so it's captured, and that's awesome. And it looks like it slides out. I love that. That means it's going to be super rigid. Because you know, you get a lot of them, there's one screw and the other end just has a tiny little tab and that's it. This has a whole section right here on both sides that slides into there, and that makes it super rigid. And then you got the two ends go into the chassis as well. So this contributes to it being so sturdy. And like I said, it's a captive screw, so you won't lose it. Awesome. Just like I suspected. Battery, which 9 volt, it'd be better if it were AA's or AAA's, but 9 volts fine. We'll just see how the battery life is driving that OLED display. And hey, look, ceramic high rupture fuses, freaking awesome. And are they the right rating? Yep, 1000 volt. I don't see any writing on the smaller one, but I would imagine that they are. GP. Oh, is this golden power? They don't bug me as much as Dave Jones, but let's replace it with one of these. So, oh, I forgot to mention too, this, since you'd be opening this often to replace the battery or fuses, it goes into a threaded nut basically, or a threaded metal insert. So that's freaking awesome. Now, I don't expect any of the other ones to be, but when you have access to the fuse and to the battery, there's no reason you should ever have to open up your multimeter. So that's perfectly fine. I love that you can access both, and I love that this slides off. Now, here's something interesting. I see little things, and then there's some little things right here. So something's going on with that. I'm not sure what that's for. Maybe it's kind of like intrusion detection on PCs, where if the side of your case is off, it won't power on for safety reasons. Maybe it's something like that. I don't know. We'll find out when we take it apart, though. So I guess we should probably do that next. So yeah, let's take this thing down and see what's going on under the hood. But nice. So on the back side, you got tons of shielding. I don't understand I don't know what's the point of this? Why is this spring loaded? There's something I'm missing here. Now I know the lower models of Voltcraft have some deal to where it shifts to one side or the other a little plastic piece that basically makes it impossible for you to plug leads into your meter whenever it's taken apart. So maybe this is a similar type of deal where I don't know. Honestly, I'd have to take a look, but yeah, I don't know. Anyways, shielding, and then there's the little light pipe things for the IR. And actually, it looks like this has send and receive. Most of these only have send. It's got a good old CR2032. I'm guessing it's for the real-time clock, because I saw that it had date and time. And unlike the Unity ones I've seen, which were soldered on, this one is actually in its own socket. So I have a feeling that Voltcraft actually ordered this to their own spec. So that's pretty cool. So you got the buzzer there, and it's not the typical sloppy job where it's, you got wires running across your board and then they just double-sided tape it down. It's actually cool. Most of this is nice, extremely neat SMD design. Well, that cap's kind of not super aligned, but I guess I can't really knock it for just that. A little watch crystal. Cyrus Tech. Lots of cutouts for high voltage isolation. There's a little can over here. I'm curious what's hiding under there. Well, we got our PTCs and mobs over here. a decent amount. They're kind of dinky small ones, but it's better than none. And for the input resistors, it looks like we got some over on this end. They're not through hole, but they're pretty beefy ones for being SMD. I'm sure they're fine. I would imagine they've done their homework. And they've got this style of battery terminal. Oh, these are even better. So a lot of the ones I've seen, it was like a flat tab on a flat pad, and then they solder it down. This has like two holes, and then each one of these has two blades that go down in, so it's like extra sturdy. And actually, I might actually go add solder on the top side of these pads, because that one moves a little bit, but not a big deal. But it's the type that Dave Jones likes, where it protrudes through the slots into your battery compartment, which you can't see because the kickstand's down. Whoops. But yeah, everything's on this side of the board, so I don't know if it's worth flipping it over, but obviously without going and looking up the pictures, I don't remember what the inside of the Uni-T models look like, or the one would be similar to this. But this looks much better than what I remember the Uni-T ones to be, so I think I did get my money's worth. Now, I do need to get some Windex and a cleaning cloth. Actually, I don't know, the ammonia might hurt the screen, so maybe I should use just warm soapy water. But I'm gonna clean the screen and see if there's any dust under it. If there is, I'll go ahead and pull the rest of the board out and we can take a peek underneath it. But I'm kind of curious what's under this can in the corner. But yeah, absolutely flawless. All the SMD parts are perfectly aligned. Most of the thing, it looks like most everything is the right package. I remember some of the Uni-Ts had basically the wrong component package for the pads. So nothing on here is jumping out at me as being bad design so far. So yeah, not bad. I had a feeling I might open this up and be really disappointed, but honestly, I'm perfectly happy with this. And instead of having the really crappy split type jacks, this has the higher end ones. You can tell the higher end ones because they'll either have a screw or they'll have a nut. And so these should be really rugged binding posts. But I'm really curious now what this spring-loaded thing is. Now there's 4 prongs, and then there are 4 slots right here, just above where the screws are. So I'm gonna pull this out of camera view for a second. I want to look and try to see if I can figure out what that is. So I haven't completely figured out what they're doing as far as what the spring-loaded thing is. There's a part where it sticks out up here and there, but the only thing that's here is just the back of the kickstand. So I'm not completely sure what's going on with this. So obviously, it being just a 9-volt, I thought maybe that cuts the power. Like if this were 2 AA's, the back end would be, the positive and negative of the 2 batteries would be shorted together. So I thought maybe when you take it apart, that wouldn't make sense either, because the battery's on this side and everything it would power would be on this side. So I'm not really completely sure. But one thing I did see that caught my eye, which I don't think Uni-T does at all, it looks like, I'd have to take this apart, and I probably will, because I'm curious to know what the hell it is. I see some wires coming out here. There's like a vertical PCB that goes between the 2 jacks, and it's really hard to see, but it looks like there's something that goes and hits the edge of the input jacks, which maybe that's the fluke style optical input jack detection, because it's not the split type, it's got the really nice screwed down solid. Is it solid? Yeah, they're definitely the good solid type. You probably can't see it from this camera angle, but if you look in there, it's the good type of binding, or not binding post, but a jack, input jack. So my guess, it's the only halfway good guess I think I have, is that it's got optical detection of the jacks, but I'm really curious to see this, so I guess take it apart further. And you know, yeah, those are floating. It's not like I'm gonna have to take these screws out. I should be able to just take the few screws out that's holding this into the front of the chassis and then lift the whole board out, hopefully. So let's do that now. I'm too curious now not to look. Okay, so it took me a couple more minutes, but I got it. I just didn't want to force it and break it because I have a tendency of doing that. And so what I found is very, very interesting. This might be the first time I've seen input jack protection done this way. It is not optical. So here's the inside, wonderful. There's the inside of the front panel. They're not tactile, they're definitely the membrane style buttons, which isn't a huge deal. I'll get that back on later. There's the contacts for the range switch. So, as you can see, on this side here, and then inside of this jack and this jack, you can see a slot. So when you put one of these, we'll look at this one because it's red and you can see it. So do you see the red right there? See how the sleeve basically came up to that point? I have to be careful because there's a little dinky ribbon cable holding the display on. Look at this. It's a little tiny PCB and it's got a tactile button on it. I believe. I didn't. Yeah, it's definitely a tactile button. So that right there shows you, I mean, it has very, very, very little travel to it. So that shows you how tight the tolerances were for designing the jacks on this thing. And so that is what detects if the jack is in that hole or not, or if the plug is in that jack or not. That's a really pretty awesome design, to be honest. I have not seen it done that way. I've seen the split type, where they check to see if there's anything conducting between the two halves, and I've seen, you know, how Fluke does it, where they have like an IR sensor, and on one side an emitter on the other side, and the inside part's clear, so then it shines through, so then they can detect if it's being blocked or not. But I've never seen it done with little tactile buttons like that gets pushed by the actual sleeve, like the insulation sleeve of the jack. That is pretty brilliant. I like that a lot. And so you've already seen this side of the board. I'll show you the other side. There's the OLED screen, and it's just connected with this flexible ribbon cable. And the only thing really to note on this side of the board is that little guy. That's an ARM Cortex-3. That's freaking M3, sorry. It's really freaking awesome. Not what I expected to see under there. But it's obviously driving the display. You can see all the traces coming off of it. But another interesting thing, I'm actually, because I haven't read the manual or even used this, I did the whole Dave Jones take it apart before you turn the damn thing on. I guess we technically turned it on because the battery was in it. But that was just to see what the range switch is like. I don't know what this button does, but look what's under it. It's got like little tactile buttons, 4 of them. I've never seen it that done like that. That's hopefully they're not latching, because if they are, I just screwed them up. But man, just looking more closely, so, you know, at first, when I first showed you, I wasn't really able to get close to it because of the camera, but when I look at it really closely, it's really, really superb solder job, and all the components were pick and placed on there nice and straight, unlike what I've seen in teardowns of the Uni-Ts. So much, much, much better construction, and this looks like gold plated, as you would expect from a high quality meter. And you can see some more of the isolation slots. Looks like we've got some diodes, some more power resistors. Oh, and there's the 10 amp current shunt That's where the guy was hiding. I didn't really think about the fact that we hadn't seen it yet. But yeah, that is the inside of the Voltcraft, what was it, VC890? So that is much better than I was expecting. I was kind of going into this with kind of a negative approach, and I'm actually delighted. This is actually pretty good. Okay, so here are the probes. To be honest, they kind of feel shitty. They're a little cheap, and it's a really hard plastic. So yeah, and the finger guards, they don't actually stick out that far. Look at a Fluke one. See how much farther these stick out to protect your fingers from sliding up to whatever you're probing. These are actually kind of small. Now there's some ridges, but being such a hard plastic, I don't feel like that would actually give me very good traction. But and they're actually not very pointy, so the probes are kind of they'll get the job done, but not as good as they could be. So I'd say these are average, maybe slightly below average. Now, another important thing, maybe it'd be easier if we check the black one. Look at that, 80 Celsius, 2000 volt, 18 AWG, Hurwell. So they're branded and they're rated. That's excellent. They're not quite as nice feeling as, you know, the Agilent or Fluke silicone leads, but it's a pretty soft rubber or plastic or whatever this is. If it's PVC, it's a good quality PVC because it doesn't feel that bad. So probes, not terrible, not the greatest. They'll get the job done. So I've used it for a little while and I'm pretty comfortable with it. Man, I really honestly only have good things to say about it. There's a couple places where it could be a little stronger, but man, it's really a good meter. I really don't have a lot of ways to knock it, and I did find obviously that it's not just a clone of a Uni-T. They've actually changed a whole bunch of stuff. So I guess first things first, since I already have it hooked up to my voltage reference, well, here, you're gonna have to pardon the shaky cam. That, I think we can all agree that we should be able to trust, and that's reading 10.0001 volts, and this is reading 1 or 2 counts under. So accuracy wise, I completely trust it. Not going to bother setting up or turning on my bench supply, or one of my bench supplies, when they both my bench supplies they kind of have noisy fans, so we'll just do it this way. We'll just see how quickly it auto ranges. So I already have the positive connected, I'm just going to connect the negative, so here we go. It's pretty quick. It's not, maybe I should do it where you can see it. It's not the quickest, but it's acceptably quick, so. Yeah, and it's not overshooting, and it's not hitting any values in between that I've seen. Yeah, it's just jumping straight there. And then when it is, the value's locking right on. Now, it has a hold feature, but it's not like Fluke's touch hold. So you push this button, and then the little H icon turns on over there, and nothing happens. So it's just like basically a hold on any cheap meter. So it just freezes whatever's on the display. But interestingly enough, like most of these multimeters, even when the holds on, the bar graph still moves. So let's test. Okay, so remember earlier I saw the little springboard thing and I couldn't figure out what the hell they were for. Well, I figured it out. And what made me figure it out is how the input jack alert works. In the exact same manner where they had a little slot down the side, along one of the other sides of the same jack, there was another slot, and that's where the little prongs went down into. So basically, it did two things. If you had things already plugged into it, so we'll do that now. So if you already have something plugged into it, so I already have this unscrewed. It won't let you remove the back. So basically, there's no way they can keep you from turning it on, obviously. So if your unit is on and you might, let's say you have this plugged into the mains, they don't want you to be able to open this and see some exposed stuff where you can get shocked. So basically it serves as protection against that, but it's not the only thing it does. So as you saw, once I pulled the leads out, it slid right off because it released the little lock, which locks onto those little guys right there. Another cool thing, now that that's out, it won't let you plug anything in. So that's what those little spring things did. Whenever this isn't pushing on these little things right here, because the springs usually push them up. There's these on the front. It basically pushes a little pin over to where it won't let these push down into the hole. So as soon as you slide that back plate on, that plate moves forward, and then this will be able to come down into the jack. But as soon as you pull that back plate out, the spring pushes this forward, and then you can't push the jacks into it. So this is a feature that the lower model Voltcrafts have, the ones that I think probably aren't made by Unity, or maybe they are, but I saw the lower ones are completely different. Instead of just the back top half coming out, the whole front plastic, even around here, slid off. And then whenever that happened, a little piece slid to the side to keep you from being able to plug stuff in. But obviously they went with a different approach here, but it's equally brilliant, and I'm really impressed with whoever came up with that because it works really well. So just had to show you now that I figured that out, because when we were breaking this down or taking it apart, I honestly had no idea what that was for. I was puzzled, but I had to know. So 1 voltage, I'm gonna stick it in a current jack. No, I'll be damned, it works. It even tells you on the screen, error on amp input. Error on milliamp input. I love that. It even knows exactly which jack you have it in. So now let's go over to microamps. Error on voltage input. So that is I wouldn't expect any less from the Germans. So that's pretty awesome. It's okay. It's not bad. It's a little slow, but it's not like amp probe slow. And at least it latches. Now there is some kind of something on here. I should probably take a really fine grit sandpaper and scuff these really quickly. Despite latching, you can tell that it's not making perfect contact. They're not fancy probes that are gold plated or anything. But watch, if I go really fast, the super quick test, it only detects it about half the time, so pretty quick. Could be quicker, but it's good enough and it latches, so I'd say it's a pass, but it's not excellent, but it's good. Good is good enough. It's good enough that I would use it and it wouldn't bug me too much. But the ones on the amp probes are just so slow. I can't use those at all. Now this has a range of up to 6,000 microfarad, which is much higher than most multimeters on the market. A lot of them you're lucky to even have 1,000 microfarad. So like for example that Radio Shack one I have only goes to 100 microfarad, and that's pretty unusable. So let's see, this first one I have is a 330. Pretty quick, I like it. And then the second one is a beefy one. It is 4700, so it's not all the way up to its far reaches, but this is as close as I could find. Okay. That's actually really fast for going into its highest 6,000 microfarad range. Did you see that? That's quick. Make sure it's discharged. We'll try it again. Holy crap, that might be the quickest I've seen. In fact, that might be quicker than my LCR. Let's find out. Here we go. Are you kidding me? I guess I never really checked to see what the maximum range. You got a little sidetracked with that. Let's see. Oh, I guess one thing we could do. Check resistance auto ranging. A little bit slow, and actually without using rel it actually went straight to 0. So first resistor, teardown. It's a little slow. It's definitely not the slowest I've used, but it's not the quickest either. Wouldn't win it would not win any races. There's a 470. And I think this is a 10K. Yeah, it's decently quick. I think it's the auto ranging that's a little slow. I bet if I manually set it to a range, it would be just dead on. And there's a 1 meg. So yeah, it's not. I wouldn't say it's slow. I'd say it's pretty average as far as resistance measurements go. So we did continuity. Let's do diode test. Okay, we'll start with something easy. Let's do a regular red LED, and I think these have a forward voltage of 1.8 volts. Look at that. So it lights it and it tells me the voltage on the screen. Not very many multimeters pull that trick off. Now we have a white one. I believe these are 2.8 volts. Look at that. It's bright. 2.61 volts. Reads the voltage on the screen. And this is the only other one I have. It's one of these jumbo 10 mil. Let's see what it does. 2.6, and it lights it. This draws more current and it's able to light it up. So very good diode tester on this guy, because it's able to light all the LEDs I threw at it, and it shows the voltage, so the forward voltage. That is awesome. So not super accurate. I trust this guy because I can plug 4 probes into my X-Tech temperature logger, and then they'll all be within like 1/10 of a degree, and sometimes they're all dead even. So I would say it's close. Man, is it really that far apart? Well, and it's probably not its ability of measuring temperature. It's probably just a crappy probe they include with it, I would guess. So that's kind of one downside to doing it this way instead of including an adapter like the Uni-T does, because at least with the Uni-T you could buy a good quality thermocouple to plug into there, I guess. Okay, so what we're going to test next is its ability to read frequency, and I noticed it actually had a pretty impressive range. I noticed a lot of meters include frequency reading, but they include a really crappy measurement range, which makes it pretty much worthless. But this one supposedly will do 60 megahertz, so let's not mess around. Let's just go straight to 60 megahertz. So I got it plugged into channel 2. The other end are little alligator little clip things. A lot of zeros for 60 megahertz. And to give it its best shot, we'll give it 10 volts peak to peak amplitude. And we'll fire that on, and let's see how it does. Is that not a thing of beauty? They advertise 60 megahertz, and look what it does. And it's pretty close enough, considering that's essentially 60 million, so. Okay, so let's talk about the interface, because some of these higher end multimeters actually have enough features to where they require having a menu system, and this one is no exception. This has a menu system. I mean, there's a secondary button for doing secondary stuff, but it actually does have a menu, so we'll take a look. And honestly, this is probably one of the best menu systems I've seen. Maybe it's because it's German made and they're really good with stuff like that, but excellent menu system. So we could be very happy that Sony had nothing to do with the creation of this UI, because they suck at that. So to get into the menu, you hold the shift button until it says shift at the top, and then you have to do it again. And boom, you're in the menu. Now it's super easy. You just keep pushing the same button to cycle through the different menu options. And then you see the blue writing, there's a left and right arrow up here above these buttons. That's how you switch between the fields. And then see the plus and the minus and blue writing on the sides of these two buttons. That's how you change the value of the field that you have selected. So super, super, super easy. And then when you're done, you just hold this and that leaves the menu. So really quickly, we'll go in and I'll just show you what all it has. So it's got a real-time clock inside, and that's why it had that the button cell battery, the CR2032 battery, and I imagine it's in there to store the time. So if you change the battery, you don't have to put the time and the date back in there. And this is for the purpose of data logging. So you can set the time, auto power off. You can set it completely to off, 5 minutes or 15 minutes or 30 minutes. You can set measurement ranges, which I'll probably never use. You can set the manual. This is to set if what happens. It's got 1,000. It's got 1,000 memory points that you can manually log data to with a timestamp. What happens when you get to the 1,000th mark? Does it round robin? I'm a fatty. Does it round robin back around and overwrite the first ones, or does it stop? And that's what the fix is. See, fix. Whoops. So there's overwrite or fix, and that's all that does. Not sure what that does. This is a sampling rate if you do auto sample versus manual. Auto brightness, I think it just, from what I saw when I was messing around, I think it just changes the brightness depending on your battery level. So when the battery level gets lower, it turns the brightness down. And then this is where you set your battery type. If there's some kind of lithium option, a lithium battery option you can put in here, which I might explore, because the whole reason I got this is potentially to replace my Agilent one for doing YouTube videos, since the screen is really awesome for picking up. And that's it. So that's the secondary button for all the secondary functions, like low pass, AC plus DC for the RMS. And it's got a secondary display up here, so it can show the AC and the DC component, or DC offset, I guess. And then you got frequency and duty cycle, and then you've got, for your secondary function of this range is diode test continuity, and then you got over here it's just switching to Fahrenheit. And for over here, for current, it's AC or DC for the current, and then you can switch it with this button. Let's see. Oh, and this button is the one that puts it into low impedance mode that goes to 400 kilo ohm input impedance. But the reason it's got a caution symbol, it'll only do 1,000 volts max, and it's limited to 3 seconds at a time. So kind of weird. I was wondering why there's a dedicated button with a weird caution symbol on it. So the backlight, it's really hard to tell, but look really carefully and you should be able to see the brightness change when I hold the button each time. I think it goes from high, medium, low, high, medium, low. So there's high, medium, low. There. So I'll just leave it on low, but it's a subtle difference, but who knows, it could potentially make up for hours of battery life. Not sure. If you don't hold it and you push it, it's just a range hold, and it's not like Fluke's fancy touch hold where it's a peak hold. This just freezes whatever value's on the screen at the time, so not that useful. Min and max on this unit is actually pretty good. I like it because there's a secondary screen. So right now we're showing the max, and this is live. As we record a higher value, this will change. But on the secondary display right above here, it's actually showing what it's thinking it's reading from the leads, which aren't plugged in, and we're in millivolt range. That's why it's jumping around. Hit it again, it goes to minimum, now it shows the minimum, and up here in the secondary display, it's actually showing what's reading live from the probes at the moment. And then if we hit it again, it shows average. Now average, that's kind of ambiguous. What does average mean? You know, what's the sampling rate, what period of time, what type of average is it? Is it a rolling average? So that I'm not sure, and at a quick glance I couldn't find anything in the manual about that, so who knows, but at least it's got average. That's pretty cool. And that's it, and then it just goes back through min max average. To go back to normal mode where the main display is what the probes are reading, you just have to hold the min max button until it goes back, and then there you go. So that's kind of the annoying thing, actually. So it's kind of cool, but it's kind of annoying. It looks like you have to be in the min max or average mode with it on the screen here to be able to for it to be recording min and max and average. Because watch, if I take it off and then we come back in, I bet 2.38 won't be there anymore. Yeah, see, it basically, so that means that to use min-max or average mode, you have to use this tiny secondary display for whatever you're measuring, and that's kind of annoying. Not a deal breaker. At first I thought it was cool because it's got the two displays, but I think it should have been the other way around. This should always be the main display, and then use the secondary to show the max. So maybe they'll see this video, and then in the future version they'll switch those, but that's kind of a bummer. But at least it has min, max, and average, and a lot of them don't even have average, so that's pretty neat, I guess. This is just a relative button, and it shows a delta, and then the amount that you're offsetting by in the little secondary display part up there. Now, despite having a secondary display, I don't believe it'll let you do current and voltage measurement for like power-related stuff, like some of the nicer meters, like the Gauss Metrowatt and stuff do. So, and then the secondary for these are for logging or for viewing your log data points. And this is a manual range switch, so you can, so if you look down here in this corner, 60 volt, 600 volt, 1000 volt, back down to 6. And actually, it's kind of like how the min-max works. You have to push and hold it to go back to auto again, and then it'll say auto. So, I think that's it as far as user interface. Like, I really can't complain. It's got the battery level down here, shows you if it's an auto range or not. It shows you the auto power off is enabled. You have a little bar graph down here. The display update rate, it's pretty average, not super fast, not super slow. And over here it shows you what range that your thing is in. But I would say, as far as user interface goes, for a multimeter, that is probably one of the best I've seen. So thumbs up to, well, and when I say menu or interface, overall interface is excellent, but especially the menu. The Agilent one isn't quite that simple and intuitive. It's decent, it's not terrible, but you're kind of guessing you're kind of pushing the different buttons when you use the Agilent menu system to try to figure out which ones do the adjusting, which ones select the fields. It's a little clunkier than how they did it on this one. Well, the only thing left to do, I think, is to give you a summary and my final thoughts on this meter. So, it's tough. It might be cheaper maybe if you live in Germany. This might be more of a kind of like an X-Tech or Amprobe priced meter, but for me in the States to get it with shipping and everything, I think it was around $250, and that's pretty high. $250 would almost get you a Fluke 87.5 on some kind of like a Christmas special or something, you know. It would definitely get you a mint condition used one, and so when you look at it that way, it's kind of tough, though. This has some super impressive specs. What is it, 0.03 basic DC accuracy, if I remember correctly. Yeah, 0.03%, and then it's plus or minus 10 digits. But as you saw from the testing, I mean, this thing was dead on. So it feels great. The price isn't terrible for what you get. I mean, it is 60,000 counts. You saw it basically measure capacitance equally well when compared to my, I think it was like $650, my LCR. And and did it quickly. Plug in anything over 1,000 microfarad on most multimeters, and they'll sit there and chug for 20-30 seconds plus. And this one is just mere seconds, so it has strong points. Auto ranging on resistance could be a little quicker. The probes could be a little higher quality. It could do with a rubber holster. It could also do with a complete redesign that makes this not look like the Uni-Ts, because I think that's really pulling down the value of this by looking almost identical to the Uni-T, because everyone knows that they kind of have a flaky quality control kind of deal as far as input protection and the PCB exterior. No, I don't think I've heard anyone complain. In fact, they have excellent LCD screens, and the range switches are great, and I like the kickstands. I don't believe Dave Jones did, but it's wide, it's sturdy. I mean, I don't have a problem with it. Good bang for the buck. Maybe not good bang for the buck. I'd say it's a good. You get what you pay for. It's a good premium meter. I think the reputation just isn't up there with Fluke or Agilent or Bryman or the other brands. Maybe it is if you're in Germany or even in Europe, but in the States, almost nobody would know what Voltcraft even is. I don't think anyone's even heard of it. So it's kind of got that pulling it down a little bit, and I feel bad for them because as far as I can see, this is a pretty damn good meter. But now, if this were priced in the US at $150 with free shipping, this would be, I would say, excellent, and everybody should probably have one. But it's not. It's a little more expensive, and it gets up to the price range where you have some pretty stiff competition from some of the big brand names. And as far as features, though, I mean, it's not hard to beat Fluke in features. Now Fluke has a touch hold and some cool stuff, but you know, they have a really clunky way of accessing the features where you have to like turn it off and like hold a certain button combination when you power it on, and I think that kind of stuff is really annoying. I don't know why they can't make just a super simple menu system for selecting that kind of stuff, but hey, I guess more complication, you know, that you add to it, the less reliable something can become. So maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. But yeah, it's tough. I'm not gonna say that everyone should go out and just run buy one of these, but I think if you like the feature set and you like the price and where you live, this is one of the better bang for the buck options for you over, say, a Fluke. Because I know if you're not in the United States, the Fluke stuff's pretty expensive. I think the Fluke 87.5 might cost people overseas, you know, $500-600, which, you know, I think here you can get it for like $3 something. So I know that Fluke's not always the best option for people who don't live in the States, especially for countries where you have crazy import taxes. So if that's the case, and if you liked everything that you saw in this review about it, I think this can be a great meter for you. But I'm not going to say that this is like the next Fluke 87.5. It's got a lot of reputation to earn before I think it'll get to there. And I think the first thing it would have to do is shed the Uni-T lookalike chassis, because that just pulls its reputation down quite a bit, because you just assume it's just literally a Uni-T with their brand and model printed onto it, but it's not. As you saw, the PCB is completely different. It's actually really first class layout and solder quality and everything. All the components were straight and everything was very well designed. So yeah, I guess I've blabbered on long enough. I hope at least one person out there finds this review helpful, because there is no review of this. This is the first review, as far as I can see, of a Voltcraft VC890, and in fact of even other models. There aren't very many videos out there of them. So either way, I'm gonna get use out of it, and if no one ever stumbles across this video and gets use out of it, that's fine. I ended up with a nice meter. But yeah, I will see you in the next video. Bye.